The shouting started before anyone saw who it was directed at. In the middle of the upscale apartment lobby, a well-dressed man was waving his phone in the air, furious that the private event upstairs had messed up his reservation. Guests slowed down, staff froze, and near the entrance, the security guard quietly watched. Most residents barely noticed Marcus during the day. He stood near the glass doors in a dark uniform, greeting people with a simple nod. To many, he was just part of the building's background, another silent figure by the wall. The angry man clearly saw him the same way. "Are you even going to do something?" the man snapped, stepping closer to Marcus. His tone carried the confidence of someone used to being heard immediately. A few guests turned away, expecting either escalation or silence. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't match the man's energy. Instead, he calmly asked, "Sir, what seems to be the issue?" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the kind of steady tone that makes a room pause without realizing it. The man scoffed. "The issue is incompetence. I have a confirmed booking for the penthouse lounge, and now I'm told it's unavailable." He leaned in slightly, assuming Marcus would either apologize or step aside. But Marcus didn't move, and that subtle stillness changed the air in the room. Marcus glanced at the tablet mounted discreetly near the desk. He didn't rush. He didn't react to the tone. He simply reviewed the schedule with the calm focus of someone who had seen tense moments before. The man shifted impatiently, expecting a quick surrender, not quiet verification. "I see your name here," Marcus said evenly, "but the reservation was automatically canceled at 6:02 p.m. due to non-confirmation." He turned the screen slightly so the man could see the timestamp. A small detail, a specific detail, the kind that removes argument from emotion. The man's expression changed, not softer, just tighter. "That's impossible." "I was in a meeting." He looked around, as if hoping someone would back him up. But the guests weren't on his side. They were watching Marcus, curious how this would unfold. Marcus nodded once. "There's a 15-minute confirmation window for private events. It's in the agreement." His tone wasn't smug. It wasn't defensive. It was procedural, like someone who understood rules better than assumptions. For a moment, the lobby felt heavier. The man opened his mouth to argue again, but Marcus added quietly, "However, there may still be a solution." That single sentence shifted the energy. Because instead of pushing back, Marcus was offering control, and everyone in the room felt it. The man blinked, thrown off by the shift in tone. He had expected resistance, maybe even embarrassment, not options. "What solution?" he asked, this time less loudly. The room leaned in without meaning to. Marcus tapped the screen once more. "The penthouse lounge is booked, yes, but the executive terrace on the 14th floor just freed up. Smaller space, better city view." He paused just enough, and more private. A flicker of hesitation crossed the man's face. Privacy. That word mattered. A few guests exchanged subtle glances. It was clear this event wasn't just casual. Marcus had noticed something others hadn't. This wasn't about luxury. It was about impression. "The terrace wasn't part of my package," the man said carefully, as if trying to regain authority. Marcus gave a small nod. "It isn't, but I have clearance to reassign when scheduling errors happen." He didn't emphasize who gave him that clearance, and that omission carried weight. The silence that followed felt different from before, not tense, measured. The man studied Marcus more closely now, not as background staff, but as someone making decisions. And for the first time since he walked in, he wasn't sure who actually held control of the situation. "What do you mean you have clearance?" the man asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. A few minutes ago, he had been certain this conversation would end with someone apologizing to him. Now he was recalculating. Marcus met his gaze steadily. "I oversee building operations during evening shifts," he replied. "No bragging, just fact." That sentence landed quietly but firmly. The receptionist behind the desk straightened slightly, as if reminded of something. Residents who had passed Marcus daily without a second glance were now watching him with new attention. The uniform suddenly didn't look like background anymore, Marcus continued. "The terrace can be prepared within 20 minutes. Catering can be redirected. Your guests won't even notice the change." He spoke like someone who had already thought 3 steps ahead, not reacting, planning. The man hesitated. His phone buzzed again. A message preview lit up the screen. "We're 5 minutes away." The window for pride was shrinking. He looked around the lobby, aware that every second of delay was being witnessed. "Fine," he said finally, lowering his voice. "Set it up." It wasn't gratitude, but it wasn't dominance either. And as Marcus began making calm, efficient calls to coordinate the shift, the atmosphere in the lobby subtly changed. The person they thought was just security was clearly running the room. Within minutes, staff moved with quiet precision. Tables were adjusted, lights dimmed to a warmer tone. The terrace doors opened to a skyline glowing in early evening blue. Marcus didn't rush, didn't dramatize it. He simply coordinated everything with short, clear instructions. The efficiency itself was impressive. When the man's guests arrived, they were guided smoothly upstairs. A few of them paused at the view. "This is better than the penthouse," one of them murmured, stepping toward the glass railing. The city lights reflected perfectly behind them. It looked intentional, almost curated. From the terrace entrance, the man glanced back at Marcus. For the first time, there was no edge in his expression, just calculation. The crisis he had tried to turn into a scene had quietly transformed into something that made him look prepared. As the event began, the building's general manager stepped out of the elevator. He scanned the setup, nodded approvingly, and walked directly to Marcus. "Good call on the terrace," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "That's why we trust your judgment." The man stood still for a second. The dynamic had shifted completely. The person he had spoken to like background noise was clearly someone whose decisions shaped the entire building. As Marcus returned to his position near the entrance, calm as ever, the lobby felt different. Not because he demanded respect, but because he earned it without raising his voice once.